All right, ladies and gentlemen, if I could have your attention in the media center and the press box, we have a very esteemed guest joining us this morning. Please welcome truly one of the greatest race car drivers in the history of motorsports, Mr. Mario Andretti. Let me tell you a little bit about this gentleman's background. The only driver to win the Daytona 500, the Indianapolis 500, and the Formula One World Championship. He raced here at Charlotte Motor Speedway in the fall race in 1967 in a Holman Moody car. His storied career has spanned 5 decades across 6 continents, and he actually had a big part to play in the development of the course that we will witness the race on this afternoon, our new ROVAL. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Mario Andretti. Good to have you here, sir.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah. Now, Mr. Andretti will be serving as our honorary pace car driver today for the Bank of America ROVAL 400. And how's your day been so far? What you been up to?
Totally awesome. I'm just following directions. Go wherever I'm told.
Well, I'll get Mr. Andretti started here.
Call me Mario.
Mario. A couple of years ago, when we were in the development stage, we had just renovated our infield road course, and we were trying to figure out what our final course and configuration was going to be for the new ROVAL. And you were kind enough to come in and do some test drives for us. Why don't you tell us about that experience and what you shared with Marcus?
Well, first of all, I can't take too much credit for the course itself. I think all the ingredients were there. The only thing that I suggested at the time, they didn't have any of the chicanes. I felt that to create more action, and also they needed to slow the cars down somewhat before turn 3. And that invite some overtaking, and as you can see, they put a chicane there last year, but it was too fast, and obviously, you know, they need more of a hard braking. And I think I like the way that they reacted for this year, which they put in a proper corner, and that's going to be interesting. It could be the point of where you're going to have the most action there. And maybe some of an action that some of the drivers don't really want, but again, I think that's what you needed, and of course you needed to slow the cars down before you enter the road course. You know, when you get off the oval, and so they did everything right for sure. And it's always, I know that challenging it is to create a road course that's got good technical and flow. You know, when you're somewhat limited, you know, with the geography. But quite honestly, I've never been too much of a fan of road courses inside an oval. I'm a fan of this one, honestly, and they did the best job that you could have expected. And I think the buzz is out there. Quite honestly, I think the drivers like it, and that's and I think the fans are going to like it as well, because I'm looking around. The view of this course, road course, is phenomenal. I mean, I don't know where else you could see as much of the racetrack as you do here, being a road course. So, you know, where the suites are, I just had a chance to today just to visit some of the suites and so forth, and I don't care where you are, even in the grandstands, where you sit, you see at least 3/4 of it. You know, so. That's a job well done, quite honestly.
You also seemed to just have a little fun that day that you were out here running this.
Hell yes, yeah. Yeah, they brought in a Porsche 918, and I was reminded that it was from a dealer that the car is over $1 million, you know, which I know. And he said, they slowed it, take it easy. I said, oh yeah, right. You know, so I don't think the dealer was all that pleased, because you know, the brakes were smoking pretty good, but it was a good way to really evaluate what was going on, quite honestly, with that car, because I could see the speed that you could build just when you re-enter the oval in turn 1 and build up the speed, and then the back straightaway, you know, you're almost up to terminal speed already. And I think that definitely, you know, needed something to slow the cars down before turn 4, because they have the symmetrical road racing setup. And so for all the reasons, they obviously did the right thing. And And again, now you have a proper situation, and I think should be good. I mean, after the restarts, that's where you want to have all the cameras.
We've actually had a lot of speculation that today you just may leave the rest of the field in the dust. Have you had any thoughts about that looking ahead?
Now you're putting too much attention to it.
All right, let's open it up.
I was going to sneak that one in there.
Let's open it up for a few questions here. Let's start here with Greg, and then we'll come to Lewis.
Hi, Mario. Greg Engel, Auto Week.
Howdy.
Love getting a chance to ask you a question. You've been around the sport for a couple months, motorsports, and you've seen obviously a lot of changes. But with the advent of these driverless cars and electric cars and all that, do you see a time in the future when motorsports won't be as relevant anymore?
Well, I hate to be on a negative note on a day like today, quite honestly, but I am not a I got to say it because it's true. I'm not a great fan of electric cars yet. You know, quite honestly, my son has a team in the Formula E, and then the owner of the series, which is Alejandro Agag, says to my dad, to Michael, he says, Michael, sometime I would like to do an interview with your father. And Michael said, I don't think you do. So to me, you take the noise away from race cars, you're losing half the thrill, half the excitement. I remember when the Andy Granatelli brought the turbine cars in Indianapolis in 1967, the first thing that the fans were saying, yeah, we like it, but we cannot picture 33 cars, even, and a jet engine makes some decent noise, but even at that, they didn't like. So again, quite honestly, as a purist, and I love progress, I love technology, I always did, always look forward, not backward, but I have some concerns. Can you imagine, going to a stock car race and have, just a bunch of like electric toothbrush noises out there? I mean, I think if people would just go out there and have a beer after the first lap, So I think the sport will be alive and well as long as we have some noise out there, quite honestly.
All right. Let's go to Lewis.
Over here. Lewis Frank Reuters. Buongiorno, Mario.
Buongiorno.
You saw Newgarden did a couple of demonstration laps. What do you think of a Cup IndyCar week, a doubleheader weekend here or anyplace else?
Well, I'd love that. I'd love to see that. I think we were talking about it with Graham in the car that I think, our sport has loyal fans, for different disciplines, but also there's a lot of crossover. And I said if a doubleheader with Indy cars puts 6 more butts in the seats, 6 more seats that you've gained. So the crossover, I think, could be healthy for everyone. And I would encourage it, of course. I think, probably IndyCar might benefit more than stock cars because the audience is much greater for NASCAR. But at the same time, we got to look at the big picture, motorsports, just create the interest, and the fans are the most important part. So I know that NASCAR is always looking for, to tweak things and, and to diversify just like they're doing here. And I think this would be another area to do that, to try to see how it would work. But you're speaking to the choir on that one.
Okay, let's go to Peter and then to Hill.
Yes, sir.
Peter Strada, TSJ Sports. Mario, does the ROVAL compare to any track you've ever seen, and do parts of it also remind you of any other road courses?
No, not at all. Quite honestly, I think a lot of road course, every road course has its own characteristic, its own character. I know that, even Formula One on the new circuits, they're happening in different parts of the world. They're trying to copy some of the turns in the traditional, like a Silverstone. We got, Monza, the Ascari curve. We got, and Spa, and it never really comes out because even at COTA, they try to use 3 different classic tracks. I don't recognize any of it, you know. So it's quite honestly, you don't have to do that. That's the beauty about the road course. But then at the same time, there's no two ovals alike. Even, you know, you try to create, you know, to make them even and close to even the banking and so forth. They're really no two alike, you know. And I know that they try to copy College Station, you know, with Michigan on a 2-mile track. The first time that they built these 2-mile tracks, and I ran both. And College Station was different than Michigan. The setup was different. It was 2 miles. The banking was pretty much the same, you know, but not the same. You know, so can you imagine now trying to build a road course that would look like another one? It doesn't. And it doesn't have to be. I think the interesting part and the challenges are always there to have something different to deal with.
Okay. Let's go up to the press box. I think we have a question from there. Press box, anything?
Mark Yarrow, PRN. I guess you guys have me now. Mario, can you talk a little bit about your career in NASCAR? And you talked about having a crossover here now and having an IndyCar NASCAR doubleheader weekend. Do you wish more drivers could cross over and IndyCar drivers could run NASCAR, IndyCar like you had back in that day, where you guys could just run whatever you could get your hands on?
Well, again, you're speaking to the choir here, because this is one thing, you know, I hear a lot of the excuses. Well, you know, the sport is much more today, you know, it's much more technical and all of that, but so it was always. And as long as, you know, you cannot run 2 major disciplines fully. You got to concentrate on one. But to be able to cross over now and then, it's not going to take anything away from where your main effort is. You know, it never was for me. And, you know, they said it's too specialized to leave. What the hell? I mean, you'd rather sit home on a couch or race somewhere else. You know, it's not taking anything away from what you're doing. So, again, I encourage that, but it's a personal thing. You know, it's about the drivers. You know, I had contracts that forbade me from doing anything else. And I was in Formula One going for the championship, and I had a week, you know, off, and Colin Chapman said, "What are you going to do this week?" I said, "I'm going to back to the States and race," and I was running for Roger Penske. He said, "You can't do that." I says, "I know, but I will." You know, so, and I never argued on my contracts, you know, because it's a big argument when you negotiate a contract. They say, "You can't do this, you can't do that." I said, "Of course, I'll go along," but I did. You know what I mean? So what are you going to do? Fire me? You know, that type of thing. So it's up to the individual, you know, whether you really want to do it or not. Don't give me this contract bull.
All right. Let's wrap it up with Hill.
Yeah, Mario Hill,
Yes, sir.
Overton, WIXC Radio, Monroe, North Carolina.
Yes, sir.
I had the pleasure of being in Daytona in '67 when you won for Holman and Moody that day. Given that success, did you ever think about driving a lot more NASCAR races? Or I know you were tied up in a lot of other things, but did you give it a thought about going more NASCAR?
Well, not really, because here again, where I felt that I belonged was in a single-seater, open-wheel car. That was really, you know, what I loved the most, and my eyeballs were already looking at Formula One. In fact, a year later, I debuted in Formula One. So the reason, I mean, I love the opportunity to do some NASCAR because I had this great relationship with Ford, and I know that they would put me with the Holman and Moody, which they did, you know, which was one of the top teams. So especially when you cross over anywhere, you know, be careful who you're going to be driving for, too. You know, you need the equipment to have any chance of having a result. And things really worked out of the box. I didn't have a motor, but I had a chassis. The chassis was quite good right off. And, you know, because I could not have given a lot of input because I had no experience, you know, but I knew what felt. You know, if it felt good, it felt good, you know, and then and that worked out for me once I got an engine. You know, for the race, I felt very competitive. I was, you know, it's a long story. I mean, I was kind of loose because I qualified, a single qualifying with a very low spoiler because I had a Duff engine in it. But other than that, I had a good chassis that even though it was loose, it was a type of loose that I had a feel for, and it worked for me. So it was my day for sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, our honorary pace car driver for today's Bank of America ROVAL 400, the incomparable Mario Andretti.
Thank you.
And of course, the Mario Andretti racing experience takes place here at Charlotte Motor Speedway as well. So anybody that wants to come out and go for a ride along in an open wheel car, we can do that too.